What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. I think I mentioned the conversation I had with one of the Jewish women I deal with not all that long ago. And maybe I didn't. Maybe I was talking to actual people about this. But she was in a political mood, so we were chatting politics. And I like asking people questions because the more questions you ask, the less opportunity you have to be outed for what you are. And what you are isn't something anyone of any political affiliation will like very much. Unless you, or unless they, came from, I think it's a Hearts of Iron 4 mod. I know the acronym is TNO, I don't know what that stands for. But they have kick-ass music and visuals, but I've heard it's kind of lame also. I'm not sure, but unless they come out of that, they aren't going to like you for what you are. And one of the questions I ask, one of the questions I like asking people is, where do you, or in political conversations, where do you, or when do you think the United States started declining? And she said when Trump got elected. And this was following a somewhat long tangent we had about Vietnam. And I'm not a Trump guy. But that answer shocked me. And it made me feel hopeless, mostly because this is a woman I respect. She has the work ethic and attitude of like an ancient Chinese administrator. And that answer depressed me because it means even people with skill sets and attitudes I respect have goldfish brain. I like the American decline question because there's not really any wrong answer to it. It's more a way to figure out where someone's head is. Like one of the questions I used to like asking people was, if you could choose one book to describe yourself to another person, or if you needed to recommend one book that speaks to who you are to somebody, what would it be? It's not really about the answer. It's more to get someone's gears turning so you can see how their gears turn. And the gear turning here demoralized me. And then there was a protest, a No Kings protest. And I knew some of the people who were participating in it. I know / am familiar with, not know in any good way, some of the people who were organizing it. And I was thinking, even if a protest like this accomplished something, how is it going to matter if the only thing you're focused on is the not even the tree itself, but the ornament on the very tippy top of the Christmas tree? And most of the people there were douchebags anyway, embarrassing themselves. Zero edge. I know for a fact, well, I don't know for a fact all of them, but the ones I know aren't carrying. What good are you doing? This is like a funeral. This is for the living. It doesn't change anything about the reason you're supposed to be there. The body is still cold, and this won't revive it. So I've been agitated. And I spent all day today listening to Confederate music and finding my favorite versions of different Confederate songs. Particularly, I'm a Good Old Rebel. And I was thinking about why I was doing this. Mostly, probably, because it's a big fuck you, or the Confederacy is a big fuck you, if you're being real about it. You have the Southern heritage types, and there's truth to that, but I'm not in the South will rise again mode, because I don't think I've ever been a the South will rise again dude, because I feel like that's the equivalent of weed. It's people consider it bad, or it's legally or popularly used to be considered bad, but it's not really. It's also self-defeating. And when I was hard into that stuff, which was when I was probably 16 to 18, I went straight into coke, as you do when you are an angry, pseudo-edgy teenager. And that didn't last because I'm not white. Not really, at least. My bone structure is Mongoloidian. So I was thinking about why I was in good old rebel mood today. Anger, and it is regional. There was a comment on the Flolga video, which fascinated me. I skimmed it once, but I didn't want to read it, because it felt like black girl spoken word, and that sort of thing gives me douche chills, so I hesitated. But today I went and read it, and it was kind of spoken wordy, but it was also, it did justice to the region, to the homeland, and it did feel black girlish, but it ended with the big contradiction, which was fuck Yankees, or as bad as it is down here, at least we aren't dirty Yanks. And that's exactly right. That's 100% true. It's correct. And that's why I think people are incorrect when they use racism as this on or off switch. It's a lot more specific than that. And in part because Patrice O'Neill studied white people to the point he understands white people better than I do. In part because I believe in the supremacy of the truth, meaning if there's something there, you can't discount it no matter how much easier your life would be if you did. Race has taken up a space next to my divine purpose, in the sense, this is something I don't want to think about because I don't think it'll make any difference. There's no way we can make any progress on this. However, it's really important for some reason, so you need to. It's also true. That's what I mentioned last time. You can see some race power growing in the United States, but it won't come together soon, and it won't come together clean. So we are studying. And that was a long intro, but in this video I want to go over some observations and thoughts on blackness and how this might all unfold. Because there are black archetypes I don't see people talk about that much, because I think it's more useful in terms of controlling populations to make it a strictly black-white issue, not a these sorts of whites, these sorts of blacks issue. And I'm also not talking about Thug or Uncle Tom in the black sphere, because I think that's shit too. Because there are black people white community has accepted that are absolute poison, and then there are also thugged out black people that white community would never accept that are actually the sort of people the new America wants, the land and the blood and the soil wants. So we'll start with the archetype I am not fond of: distrust, big problems, and there are two ways to refer to this archetype. On the one hand, you could call them Drake motherfuckers, but I don't think that covers it completely. It's more like black dudes who are trying to look Saudi or rich Egyptian or some shit. And you can identify these dudes because they all look, act, talk, and think exactly the same, which you can't say about these other archetypes. And I don't know a better word for it, we're using archetypes, but within sorts of people are always going to exist. People, for whatever reason, will always start to look and sound and think alike according to a few things, culturally maybe, popular culture, but I get suspicious and concerned when there is this degree of uniformity. They all dress like they're going to go play tennis. I have to thank Martin Goldberg for the terminology, but it's the sissy black manosphere. But we're going to rework it because it's not really the manosphere, the red pill shit the way we normally think about it. It's these black dudes who are trying to look pretty, but also trying to be masculine. They act tough, or they talk tough, or they try to act thuggish or speak thuggish. But again, they're dressed like they're going to play tennis. They probably have a skincare routine. And they exclusively hold white woman opinions. You know the embarrassing Redditor white knight stereotype? And how that sort of person looks and talks, what they think? They feel like men who are manufactured to be toys. They feel like psyop soldiers because they're too uniform in their physical appearance and in the positions they take and how ardently they take them. And these dudes are pushed to the forefront as if this is what black men are supposed to be. And they undermine anything white women would disapprove of men thinking or doing. They're very popular, they're very pretty, they're positioned as these masculine figures, but they preach weakness and dependence. They promote ignorance. They despise curiosity, strength in any form. I'm sure not every dude who's like this is an asset, but the rise of this genre of dude feels like a psyop. And in this vein, there is another genre. There's more variety in these dudes' appearances, but they serve a similar purpose. And I think I put it in my notes, but the way I described them was they look and speak like they were designed by Ubisoft or by Bungie. This specific sort of alt nerd cool black dude. Like what a they them woman would think is cool. Like a lot of black characters from video games in the last 5 years. They have a look, and I think that look is getting emulated by real people, but also they have a demeanor. It is very similar to what I don't even know what you would call them. We're going to call them the tennis dudes. They hold the same positions and functions, but they do it in an alt nerdier sort of way. And this all feels weird because I reiterate, this all feels like what a white woman would want black people to be. Fashionable, non-threatening to them, anything to make life feel more like an affirming movie. Black friend core. Except I'm not shitting on gay black dudes here. Because maybe I don't know enough, but it seems like gay black dudes are more against this shit than media would like you to believe they are. But these two archetypes of black dude are designed to reinforce the status quo. And I can't shake the feeling they were designed by an advertising team. Oh, and while we're on the dislikes, we've talked about this one on and off before, but the obvious one. The black woman who's doing all this popular, friendly black shit, but she's not black. Not even much in her facial features. Feels like another product to me, but we've talked about this one before. And now we get into the transition into the archetypes of black people that are probably good for the future of the nation. And this point or characteristic is the bridge because it distinguishes. And it's how these archetypes go about disliking white people. So on this initial side, which I view as the manufactured side, they go about disliking white people in an academic fashion. The way white women like going about disliking white people. It's this snooty university type contempt. It's a lot of hot air most of the time because they don't have their own ass behind it. They have state-built ass behind it, state power ass behind it, but not so much their own. It's like a frilled lizard sticking its frills out, except the frills is a bunch of academic circle speak. Not really saying anything, but warning you to submit. Except they have the dragon of state power behind them, in spite of what they say. Because remember, this is not a race issue. That's not their goal. That's not the state's goal. The state's goal is to disempower anybody who might be powerful or might become powerful. But then you have this other side of hating white people. This is a lot more spiritual. This is a lot more organic. Looks schizophrenic from the outside, which is probably beneficial to powers that be, because the crazier you look, the more easily people can write you off. And there's a lot of ass behind it. Personal ass. Because I think this sort of white hating gets bundled up with state hating. And Patrice O'Neill talked about this a lot. It's the same thing, but the state is using whiteness as a shield to make sniping and communicating on the ground level, boots on the ground level, much more difficult. Because you'll be listening to these more advanced black people hate white people, talking about strategies employed to keep people down, and on a familiar and palatable knower level, but they're talking about it like the state and white people are the same thing. But that's fine as long as it is right and gets the job done. I mentioned earlier, I don't think whatever racial power we're approaching will be clean. We don't need to be holding hands and singing Kumbaya to get the job done, or to wield this power. And in fact, it's probably better if we don't, because this is like army composition in a total war game. You don't want to load up your army with all of the same unit. You want variety, because variety makes you more capable, makes you more adaptable. And as long as we are united in the ground we're standing on and in the target we're aiming at, we should be fine. We can optimize later. Now on to the positive side. I think dreadlocks are a good sign. And I'm not talking about done-up artisan dreadlocks, because I believe there is ideology and essence in the way a person feels compelled to groom themselves, which is why the manufactured shit is suspect to me. And I have no concrete reason for why dreadlocks seem to be a positive overall. But I've noticed people with dreadlocks tend to be the most reasonable and also come with the most insight. Again, I could be completely wrong about this. I don't know why this is or would be, but dreadlocks are trustworthy among the white-hating black people whom we are allying with, quietly. Of course, none of this is happening above the table. I think this is all happening beneath the surface, but you can feel it. Another one, black women who are deep into esotericism. I've found them to be militantly anti-white, but they tend to promote values opposed to the status quo, i.e. individual strength, i.e. distrust of systems, and not in that obnoxious, false, state power-backed academic way, but in a that motherfucker isn't real way. And of course they promote anti-Abrahamic spiritualism. Now, of course, Christianity tends to be really big, even with these probably allies archetypes. But something you'll notice about this, or Christianity within these black spheres, it's a different spin on Christianity. It's actually a lot more Gnostic in nature than the way they talk about it would lead you to believe it is. Meaning, there's still a lot of Abrahamic interference in there, but this form of Christianity is being used to grow fangs, not to remove them. Another archetype I think is allied, maybe ironically, is the natural cop. Patrice O'Neill talked about what he wants his cops to be. They should be able to arrest you if they didn't have a badge and a uniform. And it's interesting as an outsider watching these archetypes, because I think within societies there are roles that need to be filled, and if those roles aren't filled, then the society will naturally, without anyone saying anything, fill them. These black dudes are large and scary. They don't say much, they look mildly irritated at all times, but you'll notice nobody does stupid shit while they're around. And I'm going to assume there's a reason for that. They're like natural peacekeepers. They're like the Hardy Boys from Disco Elysium. And they have this aristocratic vibe. But something in common with all these allied archetypes, or what I think are allied archetypes, is suspicion. They are always encouraging you to be more suspicious, to get stronger, to get smarter, versus the enemy archetypes, they attack suspicion. They attack intelligence. They attack strength. They encourage you to fuck around and keep your eyes closed. Oh, and something we're not covering in this video are the exchange students. Certain white people can be certifiably black, certain black people can be certifiably white. We're already aware of this phenomenon within every archetype, within every side. That's something interesting that I like about the United States. It speaks to the fact we're more of a mimetic people than we are a genetic people. Genetics are still important, but a way I thought of putting it was, our humanity is like a watering hole. It's the thing that unites all the animals. We all have to go to the watering hole to get water, or in other words, we're all human. But the animal you are is more mind. But it's interesting because mind, I think, is a genetic and a mimetic thing. As in, one race from one nationality might genetically prefer one mimetic sort of person and then produce a lot of those. But even within those communities, there is still room, or there is still need, that variety we talked about earlier, for effectively different species operating on the same hardware. So you get these other sorts of people who might as well be a different species, but they come from the same place and they're of the same race. Something I enjoy, something I love about the United States is we have more room for mimetic variability. That's what I'm talking about when I say the land thirsts for good blood. It's not necessarily about one sort of genes like dumb shit white nationalists in Europe and a lot of dumb shit white nationalists in the United States, because there's a lot of shitty white blood. There's a lot of shitty blood of all races. The United States, Lady Liberty, she wants the best blood so she can breed the highest mimetic species, which requires the best genes, and also the most room for variability in memes, but using genes. And what I mean by that is, American black people are different from every other sort of black people on the planet. And they're better. And you can say that of any race that comes to the United States and fits and makes it. But white and black people have been evolving the hardest and the fastest. Okay, I had to step away for a moment. It's hot. I'm tired. I thought about it. I listened back a bit. This is another one of those videos I am not articulating correctly. We'll have to think more about this and take another crack at it. But my point is, I don't think the United States is a nation divided by division all the way down to and through the foundations. I more feel like the United States is a hydra with tons and tons of different heads, and a parasitic outside force is trying to weed out all the heads that would resist its parasitism, or their parasitism. And I say again, I don't think that outside force is Israel. I think Israel was part of it, but I don't think they are the ones doing this. I think they're part of the system that is doing this to our Hydra nation. And I think we're going to see Israel fall in our lifetime. My suspicion. To make everyone feel like this is some victory. Like the parasite that has been controlling us is gone, and it's not gone. But that's also why I've been paying more attention to American Jews, as opposed to any other nation's Jews. As with every race, they come here, their blood intermingles with the soil, and now they are another few heads of our grand hydra. I am very specific when I use the adjective American, if any of that makes my point any clearer. Of these thousands and thousands of heads, we are semi-independent parts of one organism, and the more gullible heads are being manipulated into destroying the fewer, less gullible heads. But unfortunately, we've been brainwashed to the point we don't recognize we're all heads on the same beast, So even the less gullible heads are inclined to be turned against heads that should be on their side, which is really the side of the entire nation. However, I can feel that is beginning to change slowly. Hopefully, it changes in time. Hopefully, it changes within our lifetime. I'm stoked that we're able even to see it changing at the root level. But anyway, don't get so hung up on whether or not you think a demographic or this demographic, that demographic hates you. Pay attention to what the archetypes within those demographics are preaching. With some of them, they might be saying it differently, and they might be visibly, aggressively hating you, but you're preaching the same things. And there's a war coming, and the more groundwork we can do among potential allies now, the better. We don't need to like each other as long as we worship at the same altar and believe in the same soil. Because some parasite collective wants to take it from you, and I would like to keep our soil, so maybe one day, hopefully within my lifetime, we'll get to see whatever it is Lady Liberty is trying to show us. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.